I'm Warren Sharp of Sharp Football Analysis, and this is going to be your new favorite football podcast. I've assembled a team of experts. We're going to be breaking down some of our best bets and player props for college football and the NFL. It is an outstanding weekend of football, and it gets started on Saturday. What are we going to be discussing? We're going to be hitting Oregon, Penn State, LSU, Ole Miss, the Ravens, Chiefs game, Lions, Browns, Packers, Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, and much more with bets, analysis, and logic for every single betting recommendation coming up. All the while, we're going to make games more entertaining and fun for you and hopefully winning a little bit of money while you're at it. I'm 25-9 on my best bets in this show over the last 2 years. And I've got another best bet that I absolutely love and will deliver to you at the end of this show. But before we get into that, last week we ran a $100 giveaway for guessing the first touchdown score of the Monday Night Football game. And we're going to do that again. What other show is giving you $100 within the first minute of the show? So we're going to be giving you guys $100 for a comment in the description below. Go ahead and comment who you think is going to score the first touchdown of the Monday night game, the second Monday night game between the Bengals and the Broncos. Make sure you have a Novig account. And if you don't, click the link in the description below to get a purchase match up to $100 and get your chance at winning a $100 deposit into that account for doing absolutely nothing except being right on the first touchdown score of the Monday night game. All right, let's get into the show. All right, guys, we've got a great show on tap, and obviously we're going to break down right now the Thursday night football game, the Seattle Seahawks winning on a last-second field goal, 23-20 against the Arizona Cardinals. But tonight is the night that we normally do the points promo. The Thursday night game, we pick one randomly. We chose this one. And what is the points promo? However many total points are scored in the game, that's the percentage discount that you're going to get on the website site-wide the next day. So in other words, 23-20 means 43 total points, 43% off every single product up at the website. But here's the hitch. I had my intern, it was his first year working with us, and he proposed an idea. He said, how about 52% off? I said, why do we need to do 52? 43 was the total points. That's what we normally do. He said 52 because the winning field goal was 52 yards. That's what won the game for the Seattle Seahawks. Let's go with 52% off. Give the people a little bit of an extra bonus. I didn't love the idea, but I also didn't want to make the intern feel bad with his first big proposal. He's trying to make some change for you guys, the fans of the show. So I decided to go with it. He's looking out for your best interest, not mine, but that's fine. I respect his hustle. 52% off site-wide. So here is the deal. Use coupon code 52OFF, 52OFF, to take 52% off any of our products. You could join for just the week or a month or the rest of the full season for 52% off. There's obviously no better time to get on board. Just go to sharp.football, find the package that's right for you, and get on board today. So there you go, 52% off. I think it's a little bit aggressive, but hey, the intern, take advantage of it. Take advantage of his generosity, right? I need to remind you real quick before we talk about Thursday Night Football. Also, make sure that you guys are subscribed to us. Never miss an episode of the Sharp Football Analysis podcast. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify, Apple, wherever you digest your podcast, whatever platform is of your choosing. Make sure that you subscribe to us over there so you never miss a bet. And we've got a lot of bets for you here on the show. Some bets that I think are really great. Obviously, you know my record that I've delivered to you. Undefeated so far this year. Let's see if we can keep it rolling. But now let's talk about the Thursday night game briefly. Obviously, we saw the Arizona Cardinals struggle massively and then come back in the game. One of the biggest storylines of the game early, why the Cardinals were struggling, was, of course, Marvin Harrison Jr. not playing well, not having chemistry with Kyler Murray. And I mean, when you think about it, like this passing attack, if you're looking around the NFL and you see Kyler Murray as your QB1 and Marvin Harrison Jr. as your WR1, it's not really striking fear into you. Kyler has struggled with his connection for a while. And I've got some stats on Marvin Harrison momentarily. But Kyler Murray attempted 15 passes behind the line of scrimmage, the most in a game in his career, just throwing it short. Why? Well, they didn't have their starting running back, Connor, so they had to throw the ball a little bit more frequently. He struggled on downfield throws, though. 4 of 12 for 67 yards on passes over 10 air yards down the field. 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So not great performance by him. I tweeted out a stat. I'm going to pull it up here about Marvin Harrison Jr. He had run, I think this was like midway through the third quarter. So it didn't capture, like he did have a couple of nice catches at the end. He had run 128 routes on the season to date, most of any wide receiver. Of 31 receivers that had over 20 targets this year, there's been 31 of them. Marvin Harrison Jr. ranks 26th in wide receiver error out of 31, 26th in accurate target catch rate. So when Kyler throws an accurate ball, are you actually catching that ball? And has the number 6 highest, number 31 in target earned rate. Number 31 in target earned rate. So he's out there running around the most routes, but he's not earning the targets by gaining the separation, by beating his man, by giving Kyler Murray somebody to throw the football to. And that's a very bad combination. Number 1, most routes run. Number 1 lowest target rate, but number 6 highest wide receiver error rate. So tweeted that earlier. Obviously, he came through with a couple key catches late. That touchdown that brought the Arizona Cardinals closer, allowed them eventually to tie it up with another touchdown that they tacked on after that. On the Seattle Seahawks side of the ball, through 4 games, 21% of their pass plays have produced an explosive completion. That is the highest rate in the NFL. They are having a lot of success being explosive down the field with the Kubiak offense. It's really pairing nicely with Sam Darnold. The volume wasn't there tonight, but the efficiency was there. He didn't throw the ball a ton, but he had a good number of completions, and they did what they needed to do to leave Arizona with a win on a short week, which is always a difficult task going on the road on a short week, especially if it's a divisional opponent that knows you quite well. More than the things that I saw were the things that I didn't quite understand. So let's talk about a few of these. The first one is what lost the game for the Arizona Cardinals. What lost the game for the Arizona Cardinals was that kick that they had that landed short of the landing zone at the 21-yard line. And if you guys aren't familiar, having not seen very many of these in action because this is sort of the first year, if it lands short of that landing zone, if it lands short of the 20-yard line, in this case, it landed at the 21, that gets moved out to the 40. And in modern NFL, these kickers, they're banging field goals from, midfield. So moving to the 40, you are very close to field goal range. You just need 1 first down and maybe a few more yards on the other side of that to have most of these kickers be actually in field goal range. So it's a harsh penalty to land short of the landing zone. Now, there have been a couple of teams that have been intentionally squib kicking to try to have the ball land in the landing zone, but on a bounce, more of a line drive kick that's harder for these returners to field. And then the field position is worse. But this is the issue for me with the way that the Arizona Cardinals did this. They had 4 other kickoffs during the course of the game. Their field goal kicker was perfect at executing their strategy. Their strategy was to kick the ball very close to the end zone to make the returner not get a touchback so the ball's out at the 35 and not have a squib kick where it lands short of the landing zone to get the ball at the 40, but to land right about at the goal line so that he has to return it the entire length of the field if he's going to. The first kickoff that he had landed at the Seahawks 4-yard line. The next kickoff he had landed at the Seahawks 5-yard line. The next kickoff that he had landed at the Seahawks 1-yard line. And the next kickoff he had after that landed at the Seahawks goal line. It was right there on the goal line, so he had to return it. So we are talking about perfect execution of the desired result, which is get a kick where the returner has to start close to the goal line. Every single kick was within the 5-yard line, and the last two were at the 0 and the 1-yard line. The average starting field position on those returns was the 28-yard line. So they had done a good job of pinning these guys and this execution of this plan. And what it tells me is that this is what the kicker practices. He has practiced a lot of kicks to try to pin the returner at the goal line when he's catching the football. So if he's doing that, you know what he's not doing? Practicing all these squib kicks. And they decided to, with the game on the line, try to do something that he probably isn't practicing nearly as much, nor was he attempting it at all during the course of the game. And all of a sudden roll it out there in the highest leverage moment, the most important time to have a good result on your kickoff, because there's only 28 seconds left. They decide to do the squib kick and give the other team the ball at the 40-yard line because the kick landed at the 21 and not inside the 20. Yes, I know it's a matter of inches, right? 1 yard, 3 feet. But we are talking about the difference between the 40-yard line and the average starting field position of the 28, or who knows, it could have even been shorter than that, depending upon how that kick went and how the return went. So that was mind-boggling coaching to me, to try something that you don't do very much in a tie game where you don't need to force something, where you're doing something that your kicker is not familiar with. Just stupid, in my opinion. I'll just go out and say it like that. I don't mind the squib kicks if you practice those all the time, and if you're good at it, and if you're using them over the course of the game, and that's your strategy. We're going to squib kick this thing. And there are a couple of teams that are successful doing that, and that is great. That's actually more optimal. But because you practice it, you are good at it. And in this case, that's not the issue. So that pissed me off right there. Second thing that I didn't quite understand is I posted a picture of this. Down, the game reset was 20-20. The Seattle Seahawks were marching the ball to try to kick the game-winning field goal. There was 18 seconds left. They have the ball sitting at the let's see here. What yard line were we at here? The 38-yard line of the Arizona Cardinals with 18 seconds left. And for whatever reason, Gannon has the Arizona Cardinals defense. They have 3 safeties out on the field. 2 of them are at their own 20-yard line. So we're talking 18, almost 20 yards back off of the line of scrimmage. And another one is playing 15 yards deep at the 23. So you got 3 safeties way back, not anywhere close. Like I tweeted out the picture, like you're preventing the Seahawks. You're worried that they're going to get in behind you to score a touchdown on the very next play. So you're playing really soft. What do you think Seattle is trying to do here? There's 18 seconds left. They have 1 timeout. They're at the 38-yard line. They're just trying to get a few more yards to get a little bit of a closer kick so that they don't have to kick a 55-yard field goal. Let's make it a 50-yard field goal. Let's make it a 52-yard field goal, a 48-yard field goal. They're not trying to get a first down. They're not trying to score a touchdown. They're just trying to set up a better field goal. Meanwhile, the Arizona Cardinals are way deep. So what then happens? Well, they have to burn a timeout. Seattle's at the line of scrimmage. They're getting ready to snap the ball, and Arizona realizes, shit, this defense sucks. We now realize that they're not actually trying to score a touchdown on this play, because why would they? They're just trying to run the football. So they call a timeout. After the timeout, you know the alignment that Arizona's defense then is? Every single defender, all 11 of them, are within 7 yards of the line of scrimmage. They have 4 down linemen, not 3, which they were in the other defense. And they actually sent 3 men on a blitz to try to run blitz and, knock the rusher a little bit further back. Don't give him extra yards there, because they knew that we were going to have a run play, which obviously is what ended up happening. So it's not like that lost the game because they did call a timeout, but what are you even thinking? There's no chance that Seattle is trying to throw the ball down the field to score a touchdown. Why are you playing 3 guys 15 to 20 yards off the line of scrimmage? That made no sense. The last one here is in the first half. I want to say it was actually in the first quarter. Seattle has the ball, and it's 4th and 1, and they are doing a shotgun handoff with the quarterback and the running back both standing 6 yards behind the center, and then trying to run the football for a first down. Now, obviously that play failed, and then Arizona got the ball back. I believe this was after Kyler Murray threw an interception. Seattle then tried to go for it on fourth down, failed. Arizona got the ball back, if I'm not mistaken. But the point here is, how many more years do we need to see the Philadelphia Eagles with their tush push to realize that and have teams have the entirety of the offseason to figure out a better strategy to gain 1 yard? You're 4th and 1 near midfield. How is this your strategy? Shotgun snap it back to a quarterback who then has to take a second to turn and hand it off to the running back, who's also standing next to him 6 yards back from the line of scrimmage, and then run not just to the line of scrimmage, but beyond it to gain the first down. Meanwhile, you got the Philadelphia Eagles laughing their ass off at all of these teams that are trying these dumb strategies that have low success rates when they literally get the ball from the center to the quarterback. He's standing right there on the center's butt, getting the ball a foot behind the center where the center is snapping the ball and getting shoved forward so that in a split second, they are where they need to get to, as opposed to a long snap 6 yards back, a handoff, a run 6 yards plus the yardage you need to get. I mean, it's pretty silly what teams are doing when we already have a massive hack that the league hasn't outlawed, and we've had multiple off seasons now to figure out a strategy for how to use this and use it better. I wish more teams would, right? Like, all these teams are willing to vote it out the game because they know it's an edge, because they don't think it's fair, because, I don't know, player safety, they're sometimes arguing. But the bottom line is, like, it's a hard thing to officiate, and it definitely gives the offense the edge, clearly, with the way that it's being officiated right now. The inability to judge the quick movement by the guards and call penalties. We saw the league said, we're going to start focusing on this. And then what happens the very next week? Another false start by the offensive lineman off the guard, and nothing gets called because it just happens so quickly. And so there's clearly an edge, and teams just like, no, thanks. That's all right. We don't need that edge. We'd rather snap the ball 6 yards back and do a handoff and then try to take it from there. So enough of that. This is a big week of college football, one of the best college football boards we've got, and a massively great week of NFL action with some big games. So let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right in. I hope you guys are ready for the first international game across the pond this year. We've got the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Minnesota Vikings over in Dublin, Ireland. And that game is bright and early, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. So if you forgot about that, you got to get up even earlier this Sunday. I know there's a big day of college football on Saturday. We'll be talking about that momentarily. Make sure you're up early on Sunday to check out this game. And what I'm going to be watching for is Aaron Rodgers and how he deals with Brian Flores in that defense. Because let me tell you this, think back to the last time Aaron Rodgers played Brian Flores' defense. That was last season when Aaron Rodgers was on the Jets and they played an international game over in England. And this was a game where Aaron Rodgers dropped back to throw the ball a ton because their running backs, I think, were injured. And he ends up throwing 3 interceptions. And 24 hours later, the team fires Robert Saleh back in the States after Aaron Rodgers throws 3 interceptions and the Jets lose that game versus Brian Flores' defense. Now Aaron Rodgers is playing with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but has to go to Ireland to play Brian Flores' defense. Aaron Rodgers this year has massive splits with and without pressure, and this is what I'm going to be watching for on Sunday morning, and hopefully you guys will as well. And think back to these numbers. When he's been pressured, Aaron Rodgers is 6 of 22. That's 27% completion. But when he's clean, he's 50 of 64. That's 78% completions. Let's continue this. When he's pressured, minus 0.76 EPA. When he's clean, plus 0.34 EPA. When he's pressured, 17% success. When he's clean, 47% success. And he has a sack plus interception rate of 31% when he's under pressure. We already know that he throws the ball close to the line of scrimmage at some of the highest rates in the NFL. He does not like holding on to it. He does not like getting hit, and he hates getting sacked. As a result, he's releasing the ball very quick, but now he's going up against a team in the Minnesota Vikings that have the number 1 highest pressure rate and the number 4 highest blitz rate to cause a lot of havoc. The Vikings defense had multiple interceptions in last week's win over the Cincinnati Bengals. They're looking to try to do a similar thing here against Aaron Rodgers and this Pittsburgh Steelers passing attack. But as I mentioned earlier, Rodgers doesn't throw a lot of interceptions because he throws so many passes that are either behind or just at the line of scrimmage, making it difficult for defenses to intercept. So this is going to be a nice cat and mouse game, Aaron Rodgers versus Brian Flores. The key would be Pittsburgh Steelers defense. That's the key that they could hold an upper hand here. If they can minimize Carson Wentz and this Vikings offense, they don't necessarily have to put Aaron Rodgers under that much duress and needing to drop back as often as he did last year against Minnesota, because they don't have to throw the ball as much because they're not playing at a deficit. But if Pittsburgh Steelers defense is bad, especially on the back end, and gives up some production to Justin Jefferson or TJ Hawkinson or this Minnesota Vikings offense, that will mean more is on Aaron Rodgers' shoulders. He's going to have to force the ball a little bit more. It's going to be very interesting to see how this one plays out. Another big matchup I'm looking forward to watching is Drake May and this New England Patriots offense against the Carolina Panthers defense. Last week, Carolina caused a lot of problems for a young, inexperienced Michael Penix, and the Atlanta Falcons held them scoreless in a game that was in Carolina. Now Carolina is going to try to do the same thing, this time up in New England against the New England Patriots and Drake May. We just saw last week this rushing attack for the New England Patriots fumble the ball multiple times and basically lose the game as a result of the EPA that was lost on those fumbles and other turnovers that occurred deep in Pittsburgh Steelers territory. If you're the New England Patriots and you're Josh McDaniels, the question becomes, what is your strategy to attack this Carolina Panthers defense? That's because your rushing attack has been terrible. Right now, the New England Patriots on the year, their running back runs, number 32 in EPA, number 32 in early down efficiency, number 29 in success rate, and number 21 in yards per carry. When your numbers statistically are that poor, plus you're fumbling and turning the football over like they are, and you don't have a lot of confidence, I would tend to lean a little bit more into the passing attack of Drake May. Now, Drake May could have some success here, but on the other side of the ball, I'm really curious to see how much this rushing attack for Carolina can help out a young, inexperienced quarterback in terms of Bryce Young, because Chuba Hubbard has been downright inefficient and ineffective, and now he's going up against a great New England Patriots rushing attack. Let me share some numbers here. Hubbard has one run this season longer than 9 yards, and it came on a 4th and 1 when the defense was stacking the line of scrimmage. The Carolina Panthers are now without their center, Austin Corbett, their guard, Robert Hunt. They had 30 rushing attempts last week. Not a single one of those gained more than 8 yards. And that was versus a Falcons run defense in their first game without those two offensive linemen that ranks worse than the New England Patriots in basically every single statistical metric, including yards per carry, EPA, rushing success, and yards before contact. The Patriots run defense has faced 56 running back runs and allowed just one to clear 12 yards, and that only gained 13 yards. They rank number 2 in yards before contact allowed, only to the Cleveland Browns, who we'll be talking about later on in this show. The Panthers, they like to use a lot of outside zone. The Patriots rank number 2 defending it. So can this Patriots defense maybe help out their own rushing attack offensively by slowing down the rushing attack of the Carolina Panthers, putting more emphasis on the passing attack with Bryce Young? And as a result, their defense maybe can get the takeaways that the New England Patriots offense was giving up last week to the Pittsburgh Steelers. In either case, I'm going to be fascinated to see how the Carolina Panthers rushing attack looks against a great Patriots run defense, and Josh McDaniels' strategy offensively, and whether he decides to lean into the passing attack with the inefficiency and unreliability of their running backs. This week, we've got 2 late games starting at 4:25. Obviously, the marquee game that everybody's going to be watching is Baltimore at Kansas City. That's obvious. But the other game that's going to be played at the same time is the Chicago Bears taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. And this game should be really interesting because there is a ton of opportunity for both of these quarterbacks to have really good days against their respective secondaries. If you look at the Raiders. Geno Smith off of a horrible performance in a terrible rest spot. The NFL will tell you does not matter at all, but the Raiders go out there at a horrible rest disadvantage and lay an absolute egg against the Washington Commanders, the best rest advantage spot that anybody could ever possibly have that early in the season. And with Marcus Mariota, they destroyed this Raiders team thanks to some, in part, to that rest. The Raiders throw the ball deep at the number one highest rate in the NFL. The Chicago Bears rank dead last defending deep passes. The Chicago Bears throw deep at an above average rate, and the Raiders defense ranks 30th defending deep passes. The Chicago Bears also should have a benefit because they use above average rates of 12 personnel offensively, and the Raiders are number 31 in the NFL defending passes out of 12 personnel. On the ground, it's going to be interesting to see how much success Genty can have because he struggled in the past. But listen to this. The Raiders used the fourth most inside zone of any offense so far this season to run the football. And the Chicago Bears run defense ranks 31st defending inside zone. But on the other side, it's also beneficial for the Chicago Bears rushing attack because they use outside zone at the fourth highest rate. And the Raiders run defense ranks 30th defending outside zone. So one team loves inside zone, one team loves outside zone, but both defenses are terrible defending those. Both quarterbacks like to throw the ball deep down the field. Both defenses are terrible defending deeper passes. This could be a fun and entertaining game. Definitely something to either have on your second screen while you're watching the Chiefs and Ravens or flip to during commercials at a minimum, because I think we could see some interesting fireworks coming out of this game. Now joining me on the show is our college football betting expert, Ryan McChrystal, who is off of a 2-1 week. He's 9-7 on the year, and you can find all of Ryan's game previews up at sharpfootballanalysis.com. We're going to the big game first. I mean, there's a ton of big games. It's going to be fun to talk to Ryan this week, but let's talk about Oregon at Penn State. Last year, Oregon defeated Penn State in the Big Ten championship. This year, Penn State is looking for revenge. Ryan, they're doing a whiteout game with hopefully 110,000 fans in attendance. What is your favorite betting angle on this massive game?
Yeah, I'm rolling with the road underdog in this game. I like Oregon, even though they're an underdog by 3.5 points in this matchup. I think the fact that they're the underdog has a lot to do with the fact that it's at Penn State at night in a whiteout. That's a tough environment to play. Oregon has a first-year starting quarterback in Dante Moore, so it's a tough challenge for him. I just think Oregon has too many advantages to overcome that young quarterback. I don't think it will be too much of an issue for them. Maybe Moore makes a mistake or two because of the environment, but Oregon has the edge almost everywhere you look in this matchup. But there's three big factors that I want to touch on. The first is I think Oregon should be able to run the ball, and I think it could be a pretty big mismatch. Penn State last year, they had a dominant run defense against certain types of teams, but spread offenses were a problem for them. And Oregon last year, despite their reputation as a spread offense, actually leaned a lot on heavier formations in the run game. They slashed their rate of 2 tight end formations this season, though. And what's happened is, even in this early going in the season, we're seeing Oregon face fewer stacked boxes this season. Last year, when they were using 2 tight end formations at a pretty high rate, Oregon running backs saw a stacked box 62% of the time. That's kind of counterintuitive for what you would think of Oregon, especially with a good quarterback in Dylan Gabriel last year who could throw the ball downfield. This year, though, they're doing less of that. They're spreading defenses out more. They're only seeing a 39% rate, and that's a problem for Penn State. Last year, Penn State ranked 106th in yards per attempt allowed with a light box, and they haven't really been tested yet this year. So their run game numbers are still pretty strong at this point in the season, but we saw some glimpses of that shaky defense with a light box against FIU earlier this season. FIU running backs, who should have been overmatched against a defense like Penn State, they had 15 carries into a light box and picked up 92 yards, 6.1 yards per attempt. FIU should never be doing that to Penn State, even when you're accounting for garbage time. It just shouldn't happen. So the fact that we saw it in that game, we saw it last year. Oregon is more spread out this year on offense. I think they're going to be able to run the ball, and that's critical. Like I said, Moore being a first time really in this type of environment as a starting quarterback. If Oregon's able to run the ball, that just erases that big question mark from Oregon's offense. Now, the other factor here is if Oregon's able to run the ball and they're going to put up points on Penn State, probably both running and throwing, Drew Aller's got to do something. He's got to finally step up in a big game. Now, Penn State made a run in the playoffs last year. James Franklin somewhat overcame that reputation that he had of not winning big games, but they didn't do it because of Drew Aller. And we saw this issue pop up in the Big Ten title game last year. Aller just can't really throw downfield against good teams, teams that are able to confuse him with coverages and teams that are able to get pressure on him. He's not a good downfield passer. Against Oregon in that Big Ten title game last year, he was 6 of 17 with 2 interceptions on throws 10 or more yards downfield. And Penn State, because they were able to run the ball pretty well in that game, was competitive with Oregon, but Aller just couldn't keep up in the passing game. And that was really the big difference. And if we look at a bigger sample size, look at Penn State's 5 big games last year. I'll include the Oregon game, the Ohio State game, and then their 3 playoff games. And those 5 games against tougher opponents, Aller only completed 35% of his passes at 10 or more yards downfield. He hasn't looked any better yet this year. So I don't think he's going to be able to do the damage to keep up with Oregon's offense. And then the final thing, I kind of mentioned it, James Franklin. He still has that reputation of not really winning a big game, even though he did beat SMU and Boise State. It's pretty easy to put a little bit of an asterisk next to those wins. That's not the same as beating Oregon or Ohio State on the biggest stage, which he's going to try to do. I just think that there's a big coaching advantage for Oregon in this game. In fact, if you look at James Franklin's entire career against teams that finished the season ranked in the AP top 10, I'm not really concerned about where you are at the time of the game because, sometimes there are bad teams ranked in the top 10, right? But at the end of the season, we know who's good and who's not. And in those games against top 10 teams at the end of the season, for his career, James Franklin is 4-30 in those games. He just doesn't win these games. On the flip side, Dan Lanning, who's only been a coach for a couple of years, he's 4-5 in those games. So despite giving James Franklin an 11-year head start in the coaching career, Lanning has already matched James Franklin in wins in these types of games. And we've seen Lanning on the big stage make great coaching decisions. There was that, somewhat controversial play at the end of the Ohio State game last year where Lanning seemed to manipulate the clock a little bit by taking a penalty. Those are the types of things that Lanning's capable of doing that James Franklin's just that's not even entering his mind. He's not playing chess at the end of the games, to say the least. So I just see too many factors here leaning Oregon's way, despite the inexperienced quarterback. Give me the points with the road underdog. I'll take the Ducks.
All right, Ryan, that was some great analysis. That stat on James Franklin against top 10 teams is ridiculous. Let's talk about another big game, LSU at Ole Miss. LSU is 4-0, heading to Oxford, taking on 4-0 Ole Miss. And before I ask you what you're betting on this game and why, I got to ask you, Ryan, did you see that post on X where Lane Kiffin replied to a picture of his daughter sitting on the linebacker's lap of LSU and told everybody in the replies to take the over? It wasn't even a post about betting on the game. The guy was just posting a picture of this is the official launch of his daughter's relationship dating this LSU linebacker the week that Ole Miss plays him. And Kiffin just says, take the over. Did you see that?
Yeah, you can certainly count on Lane Kiffin to up the entertainment factor on social media.
Yeah, so he's looking to take the over. I don't know if that's the direction that you're going in this game, but what do you like about this one?
Yeah, I like the road underdog in this game again. Our LSU is getting up 1.5 points on the road at Ole Miss. The reason here is mostly about LSU's defense, which if you haven't paid close attention to LSU this year might sound as a pretty surprising because for the past couple of years in the early going and Brian Kelly's tenure at LSU, that was the big concern, was he couldn't figure it out on defense. But prior to last season, they hired Blake Baker, the defensive coordinator who had previously been at Missouri. He's now had 2 transfer portal cycles to get the right guys in, to develop some of the younger guys. And I think LSU actually has one of the best defenses in the country, maybe the best defense in the SEC this season. And that has the potential to pose some problems for Ole Miss in a couple different ways. First, I want to focus on the run game. One of the things I really love about this LSU defense is how athletic it is. And that linebacker, Whit Weeks, is one of the reasons why this LSU defense is so athletic. They've just got playmakers out there. Harold Perkins is another one. So they match up pretty well with what Ole Miss likes to do. Obviously, Lane Kiffin loves to spread you out, create open running lanes in the run game. And it tends to work really well for him in most matchups because most defenses can't match your athleticism when you spread out as much as Kiffin is often able to do. Kiffin likes to spread you out, get you into a light box, but I want to run through a couple numbers here for the LSU defense. So far this season, when they're lined up with a light box, they're only giving up 2.8 yards per carry. That ranks second in the country. Ole Miss is going to have a hard time finding open running lanes. And against the pass, what has happened so far from this Ole Miss with this LSU defense is we're seeing them generate a lot of quick pressure, which again is really critical for the way that Kiffin runs offense, especially this season. Last year, he had Jackson Dart at quarterback, so he was at times running slightly more of a traditional offense where he was trusting Dart, a veteran quarterback, to sit in the pocket, make reads, and attack downfield more often. This year, they've used 2 starting quarterbacks already this year, both of them relatively inexperienced. So he's gone back to what he's often done in the past, is a lot of these quick passes, just get the ball out to a wide receiver, trust your receivers to make plays after the catch. And to disrupt that, you got to be able to get pressure really quick. One of the reasons why Kiffin leans on that offense is it tends to disrupt the defense's ability to get pressure. But this LSU defense has excelled on that so far this year. Against one-step dropbacks and RPOs, so those quick type of passes, LSU has generated a 33% pressure rate this season. That ranks 9th in the country. That's phenomenal. Really, anything above 25% on those quick dropbacks is really impressive. So you've got inexperienced quarterback on Ole Miss's side going up against this defense, which is athletic enough to create quick pressures. It could be problematic. And I want to just talk a little bit about the quarterback situation at Ole Miss if you haven't been paying attention. They started the year with Austin Simmons as their quarterback. He was the heir apparent last season, waiting behind Jackson Dart. He won the job in camp, started the first 2 games, but they had an ankle injury. And so Trinidad Chambliss stepped in. Last year, Chambliss was playing at Ferris State. In fact, a year ago this week, he was preparing for a game against a school named American International, a 2,000 student school up in Massachusetts. And now he's preparing for the LSU defense because even though Simmons is active for this game, he's off the injury report, Kiffin has named Chambliss the starter. So he's going with his D2 quarterback against an LSU defense. Now, Chambliss looked really good in those past 2 games where that he started. But like I said, I think this LSU defense is probably a top 10 defense in the country. It's going to be a different beast, especially if they're able to get quick pressure on him and if they're able to shut down the run game and force Ole Miss to throw a little bit more in this game. It could create some problems. It's possible that if Chambliss makes a few mistakes, if he's overwhelmed by this defense, this game could even snowball and it could turn out to be an easy win for LSU. So I like LSU to win this game. So since they're an underdog, give me the points and I'll take LSU.
All right, a couple of road dogs there for Ryan. More articles up over at sharpfootballanalysis.com. He's 9-7 on the year. Ryan, is this the biggest weekend in college football of the entire season? Are you super jacked up to watch a lot of these games?
Oh, absolutely. So many good games. I mean, we didn't even talk about Alabama, Georgia. You know, it's a good weekend when we're talking big games and we didn't even touch on Alabama, Georgia yet.
Yeah, it's going to be outstanding. Hopefully everybody can get their chores done in the morning and prop up on the couch, watch some of these games, win a little bit of money as well. So thanks as always, Ryan, for joining us. Good luck, and we'll talk to you again next week. This season, we've partnered with Novig, America's #1 sports prediction market, to give you an exclusive opportunity to try out their platform. With Novig, you'll consistently get better odds than using traditional sports books because you're not playing against the house. You're trading against real users. In addition, Novig is offered in many states that sportsbooks are not, including California, Texas, Florida, Georgia, and more. And to top all of that off, right now, you can get a purchase match up to $100 with code WARN. Just click the Novig link in the description of the show below to get your $100 match when you open a new account. And don't forget, comment below who you think will score the first touchdown in the Bengals-Broncos Monday Night Football game for a chance to win an extra $100. After the game, we'll reply to the winner's comment with how to claim your prize, so make sure your notifications are turned on. Now joining me is our fantasy football guru and loyal member of the Sharp Prop Squad, Rich Rebar himself. You can find all of Rich's outstanding work over at sharpfootballanalysis.com, where he breaks down every player, every game, write-ups, analysis, rankings, and much, much more. The first guy we're going to talk about, Rich, is David Montgomery. And when I saw this flash across the screen to me, I had to do a double take because I know from a fantasy perspective, you usually like the overs, but in this case, you're going on a player under here for David Montgomery, going up against a very difficult Cleveland Browns defense. Talk to us a little bit about why you like the under his rushing yards in this one.
Yeah. If it's an under, I must really like it for me to take it. So I like to usually have fun, and cheer for players, and but we're coming off of the heater of a game that David Montgomery had on Monday night
Yeah.
too, where he was absolutely incredible. Hopefully we're doing some sharp action, taking a little bit of under on that juice. This is a spot here where I think when you look at David Montgomery and how pure he ran last week, it doesn't match up with his actual utilization. Jahmyr Gibbs actually played a season high 63.9% of the offensive snaps. He actually had more touches in any career game than he's had with David Montgomery active. There is some signal here that Jahmyr Gibbs actually has been taking this backfield over to start this season. He had 68% of the backfield touches. We've only seen David Montgomery to open the season have 11, 11, and 12 carries in these games. That's not going to be enough to get you yards against the Cleveland Browns. They allowed only 30 rushing yards to Josh Jacobs on 16 carries. They allowed only 43 yards to Chase Brown on 21 carries. They only have 23 yards to Derrick Henry on 11 carries. The Browns are the only team allowing negative yards before contact per running back rush. The league rate is 1.2 yards before contact for these running back runs. And the Browns haven't had a lot of cheapies like I just laid out as well. So I'm looking at this David Montgomery line. I'm looking at his game on Monday, and I'm saying this is definitely too high. It hasn't been adjusted for the opponent that is the Cleveland Browns run defense.
Yeah, the Browns have gone up against some tough running backs and been pretty stingy. So let's see if that continues for you on Sunday. Next up, we've got a rushing over. We're going to go with Lamar Jackson going up against Steve Spagnuolo. Derrick Henry records his third fumble in 3 games, getting all of the attention. But your eyes are set on Lamar Jackson, who has a good history of going over this number against Steve Spagnuolo. Talk to us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, hopefully we can run back one of these coordinator trends with the quarterback runs, because in this particular matchup, Lamar Jackson has rushed for at least 46 rushing yards in all 6 matchups against the Chiefs and Steve Spagnuolo. He's actually gone over 83 yards in 3 of those games. He's had 67, 46, 83, 107, 54, and 122 yards in those games. So maybe there's some ladder potential here too. Derrick Henry has started to look human these past couple games. The Chiefs, after allowing the 7th most rushing yards to the quarterbacks last year, they've already allowed Justin Herbert to have a 30-yard rushing game, on just under 30 yards for Russell Wilson on Sunday night as well. So I'm just kind of trying to follow these coordinator trends and think that in these big games, the Baltimore Ravens are going to have to put the ball into Lamar Jackson's hands.
No doubt about it. Speaking of another player, so that's 2 down, 1 more. You're going to the receiving yards market for this one. And we need the ball to go into this player's hands, and I think it's going to be fun. He returns back home. Texas native, obviously played at University of Texas, but we've got Matthew Golden. You're going over 40.5 receiving yards. And, I know this is your time to shine, rattle off the props. I got to share this one stat on Matthew Golden here, specifically against the Dallas Cowboys. We know the Dallas Cowboys have gone up against the Giants, Bears, and Eagles. In games they do not play the Cowboys, the Giants average minus 0.17 EPA per pass and 4.8 yards per attempt. But when playing the Cowboys, plus 0.46 EPA per attempt and 11 yards per attempt. The Bears, when not playing the Cowboys, so that's 2 games, minus 0.12 EPA per attempt, 6.5 yards per attempt. When playing the Cowboys, plus 0.61 EPA per attempt and 10.6 yards per attempt. Similar is true for the Philadelphia Eagles when they are not playing the Cowboys versus when they do play the Cowboys. All these quarterbacks are lighting it up, and that bodes well for their receivers most frequently. And we're hoping it's Matthew Golden. Talk to us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, we were looking post Jaden Reed injury, who was going to get the largest bump for the Packers, and it definitely was Matthew Golden. After running a route on 56.5% and 67.6% of the dropbacks in weeks 1 and 2, he was on the field for 84% of the dropbacks last week and becoming a full-time player. We started to get some utilization, lead the team in receiving yards in that game. Specifically in this matchup, he is absolutely intoxicating here. Dallas has been incredibly poor defending vertical targets against wide receivers. That's where Matthew Golden has run 27.5% of his routes have been go routes. It's the 7th highest among all wide receivers in the league. Throws 20 or more yards downfield to wide receivers alone. Dallas has allowed 11 receptions on 15 targets. That's a 73.3% completion rate. The next closest team in the NFL has only allowed 6 of those catches. The league average rate of completions on those throws is 37.2%. They've actually also allowed 5 touchdowns on those throws too. Just looking at Golden's yardage, they've allowed 6 wide receivers to clear this number already in just 3 games, 5 the past 2 weeks. So there are a lot of ways to play Matthew Golden, anytime touchdown, longest reception, and including this receiving yards prop. I don't think you can go wrong with any of them. It should be a pretty golden week to bet on his overs.
I love it. Plus the pun in there. Rich, talk to me about these alternate overs. I mean, is this a guy that we might want to be laddering up? I'm looking at the odds jam screen right now. I see 60 plus is plus 197. You can go 70 plus for plus 294. You can go 80 plus for plus 446. What do you think about laddering Golden this week?
Yeah, I mean, he had 54 yards against an incredibly tough Browns defense outdoors. He's indoors against a favorable opponent that's been giving up the bag. Downfield targets, he's earning those downfield targets. He's getting more playing time. Everything kind of just lines up here for this to be a week to take advantage of these numbers on Matthew Golden, because they're probably going to look a lot higher in week 5.
Well, there you go. That's a great way to hopefully end the day on Sunday with hitting some Golden overs on his receiving yards, longest, alternate overs, etc. Thanks as always, Rich, for joining us. As you guys know, you can find Rich over at sharpfootballanalysis.com with his great analysis every single day throughout the week. He also does chats. I don't know if you guys know this. He does a chat on our YouTube channel with all of our subscribers every single Sunday morning after actives and inactives drop. It's completely free if you're a subscriber to our fantasy product. So make sure you guys check that out over at Sharp Football Analysis. Good luck, Rich.
Good luck this weekend.
Now joining us is our referee expert, Joe Gibbs. As a reminder, you can find all of Joe's outstanding referee analysis over at sharpfootballanalysis.com. The first game we're going to talk about is the big game, Joe. It's the rematch. These teams always seem to play each other once a year. The Kansas City Chiefs against the Baltimore Ravens. Clay Martin is on the call for this one. It's one of the best series going in the NFL. Very competitive. But I'm sure the league had no clue when they scheduled this game. This is going to be a battle of 2 teams with only 1 win as we enter week 4 here. So this is a very important game for both of them for the future of the season. What is Clay Martin's impact on this game going to do to the final outcome here, in your opinion?
Okay, so for the teams specifically, and this will get a lot of traction on Twitter, so the Chiefs are a perfect 7-0 with Clay Martin. However, they're only 2-4-1 against the spread over that time. They've been favored by an average of 7.5 points in those 7 contests, so this will be their first one as an underdog. And if people remember, Martin did 2 games of the Chiefs last year, and you'll remember these, Warren. Black Friday against the Raiders, and then the divisional round matchup against the Texans. They were both extremely controversial. And so we may well see something like that down the stretch on Sunday as well, with some questionable calls. Martin himself, again, a focus on the offensive side of the ball, specifically in that category, false start, offensive holding. That's always key with these guys. And both the teams, both the Chiefs and the Ravens, have improved measurably since last season on that, particularly Baltimore. They're the only team that doesn't have an offensive holding penalty in 2025, which is a huge turnaround from last year, where they were one of the most penalized teams for offensive holding. So I don't think that's going to continue on Sunday. I think that they get nabbed for a couple. Arrowhead's a great home field advantage, the noise, and this crew has a predisposition to be calling those offensive holding penalties. I went through some numbers for this season, and this really is what stood out to me. 3rd down penalty percentage. Both the Chiefs and the Ravens are committing a disproportionately high amount of their penalties on 3rd down. And then on top of that, the Clay Martin crew, they're calling 39% of their overall penalties on 3rd down. And to put that in perspective, the league average is 22.8%. And as usual, Martin's crew, a disproportionate amount on the offense on 3rd down penalties. That's the same as every year. But their actual volume of penalties on 3rd down has gone up significantly. Now, it's only a 3-game sample size, but that's worth monitoring. It should drop as the season progresses, but keep that in mind on Sunday. Those 3rd down penalties and who can come out on top in that category will go a long way towards winning the game. As far as the actual outcome, I mean, I don't have a strong opinion either way. The Chiefs have kind of owned this series, and I've seen at some books they're getting 3 points now. And given that being the case, I mean, I'd have to go with Kansas City plus the 3. It should be another down to the wire contest.
Yeah, it should. If you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, you're saying the record is 7-0 with this referee. You look at their record against the Baltimore Ravens. They've had a lot of success in winning those games against the Baltimore Ravens without this referee involved even. And then you look at the way this game might be played. Kansas City is lacking in some of that explosiveness, and they may get some of their receiving threats back this week, but we're not quite sure how healthy Xavier Worthy is going to be for this one in terms of how much his usage could theoretically be here. But like those third downs, Kansas City has been playing like they were playing last year, which is a lot of third downs on offense. They were not skipping third down very frequently. And so penalties on third downs could absolutely be massive in determining the outcome of this game. And as you said, that's been an issue that's been a factor in both of these teams in a lot of their games this season. So that is going to be really interesting in my mind here for this one, Joe. Let's turn to another game that you're interested in breaking down, and that is the Sunday night affair. The Green Bay Packers are taking on the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas with Ron Torbert. And while the NFL didn't expect the Chiefs and the Ravens to both have one win entering this game, they certainly never could have guessed back in May when they were making the schedule that Micah Parsons will get traded just a few days before the start of the season to the Green Bay Packers, making this Sunday night football game the chance for Jerry Jones to welcome the enemy back into the facility, to host him and to have all of this drama that's obviously going to ensue on Sunday night. So NBC must be ecstatic about the fact that that trade happened, and this is their big moment to shine. What do you think Ron Torbert's presence is going to do for this game?
Well, his presence doesn't bode well for the Dallas Cowboys. I'll tell you why. They're 1-5 with Ron Torbert in the Dak Prescott era. Home underdogs. This is an amazing statistic. Home underdogs since 2016 with Ron Torbert, 16-36 against the spread, 31%. That's the lowest of any referee in the home underdog situation. The Cowboys are 0-2 with Torbert against the Packers at AT&T Stadium, once as an underdog, once as a favorite. The Cowboys last year were here with Torbert against the Ravens as an underdog. They lost that game as well. There's just not a lot here to like about Dallas. Offensive penalties, again, a point of emphasis with Torbert's crew. And again, that combination, false start, offensive holding has always been a point of emphasis with these guys and has continued to be in 2025. The other thing I've noticed is special teams penalties are up across the league, and Torbert's crew is certainly contributing to that. They rank third in special teams penalties per game, so keep that in mind on Sunday night. You know, you get those calls holding on special teams returns, and it pushes the field position back, 10 yards from the point of foul, so it can lead to longer fields. Green Bay has struggled with offensive holding so far. Dallas hasn't been as bad, but they're going up against an elite defense as far as I'm concerned. There's just not much to like about Dallas right here. I liked them last week. CeeDee Lamb got hurt early. They fumbled their first drive down near the red zone, and that really set the tone for the rest of the game. The defense is becoming the get-right unit for opposing offenses, it seems, if the last 2 weeks are anything to go by. I mean, they made the Giants look like world beaters, and they made the Bears offense, which struggled last week, look like world beaters. So you're getting a Green Bay team that's coming in off an embarrassing loss to Cleveland. They should never have lost that game. They have all the motivation in the world. You know they're going to rally around Micah Parsons. He's going to want to put on a big show. Torbert just adds to the misery for Dallas on Sunday night. And I can see like a 31-17, 31-20 type final, and the Packers win, continuing their perfect record in this stadium.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the thought process of Matt LaFleur. They were up against the Cleveland Browns last week. Typical nature gets a little bit conservative, and all of a sudden Cleveland out of nowhere ends up winning the game. And so they're not going to want that to happen this week, but how does he balance the aggression later on in this game, if it does get a little out of control, with the fact that he normally likes to just ride Josh Jacobs and run the football? Now, the benefit for him is that the Dallas Cowboys, while they are a little bit better stopping the run than some teams, they're not nearly as good as the Cleveland Browns. And so Josh Jacobs should have more success salting the game away a little bit more against this run defense of the Dallas Cowboys if and when it gets to that point in the game. Thanks as always, Joe, for your outstanding analysis. We look forward to both of these games, both marquee games, the 4:25 game between the Chiefs and the Ravens, and of course the Sunday night game here between the Packers and the Dallas Cowboys. Catch all of Joe's analysis over at sharpfootballanalysis.com. He's got more write-ups about some of the other games that are going to be played this weekend and how those referees are going to impact the outcome. Good luck this week, Joe.
Thanks, Warren.
All right, today's show has been outstanding, packed with best bets and player props from 3 of the best experts in their field. But you know what time it is. Now it's my turn. Now it is my turn to give you my Novig value play of the week. I am 25-9 on these since the start of last football season. We're undefeated this year. We're hoping to take it to 4-0 this year, 26-9. And for this one, we're going to go to something that Rich already alluded to. We're going to play it a slightly different way. Matthew Golden over his longest reception. And right now, the best value on that prop is over at Novig, -110 to the over. You can see the best odds right here over on our odds jam screen is indicating -110 to the over at 20.5 yards for his longest completion. Let me tell you this. The Cowboys have played 3 games this year. And in those 3 games, I don't want you to guess how many guys have catches of 20+ yards. I don't want you to guess how many guys have catches of 25+ yards. I don't want you to guess, hell, even how many players have catches of 30+ yards. What I want you to guess in those 3 games is how many players against the Dallas Cowboys have catches of 35+ yards in just 3 games. 6. 6 players in 3 games have catches of 35+ yards. We've got 20.5 in this prop. Here's where we've gone. Rome Odunze and Luther Burden both went over last week. The week before, they played the New York Giants. 3 wide receivers for the New York Giants had a catch, and all 3 of those receivers had a catch of at least 48 yards. And then week 1, they went up against the Philadelphia Eagles. And despite the fact that the Eagles barely threw the ball, Jahan Dotson had one as well. Last week, outdoors versus a brutal Cleveland Browns defense, we saw Golden have a 34-yard completion or catch. The prior week, when he didn't start, he had 2 targets. One was a 33 air yard target and one was a 48 air yard target. So they are pushing the ball down the field to him. They were doing that in week 2. They did it last week as well against a very difficult Cleveland Browns defense. Now they're playing indoors versus a Cowboys defense that has been torn up the last 2 weeks by Caleb Williams and by Russell Wilson. And over the last 2 weeks, Matthew Golden is leading all receivers and everybody on the Packers in terms of targets of 20+ yards down the field. And the easiest way to go over 20.5 for your longest reception is to catch a ball that's thrown 20+ yards down the field. And Golden right now over the last 2 weeks leads Romeo Doubs, leads Dontavian Wicks in terms of targets that are being thrown to him down the field. So over 20.5 is my look on Matthew Golden's longest completion. I want to make sure all of you guys can get this at the best number. So make sure you go over to Novig where they have the best odds on this bet. To do that, if you don't have an account already, click the link in the description below and you can get a $100 match on your first deposit over at Novig. So make sure you do that and let's look to go 4-0 on this year. And that'll do it for the Week 4 Sharp Football Analysis show, the fastest growing betting show on the planet. Make sure that you guys take advantage of that first touchdown score by commenting in the link below to who you think is going to score the first touchdown in the Monday Night Football game between the Bengals and the Broncos. And make sure that you guys are subscribed to us on all platforms, YouTube, as well as your favorite podcast app so that you never miss another episode. Good luck with all your bets, and we'll see you next week. Go,